he didn't come outright and say that that I was going to hell because of the state of me, but it was implied. Welcome everybody, I'm Ethan Suplee and this is LifeLONG. I'm really excited to be here and I'm grateful you've made the choice to join us today. Before we get started, I want to mention that while LifeLONG is streaming live, or will be, on YouTube, X, and Instagram, I want your active participation here. That's the goal. You are talking to me, I am talking to you. So register at twoway.tv/Ethan Suplee and you will get an email with a link that will give you access to the live version of us making the show. You'll essentially be backstage with us where you can raise your hand and we'll respond directly. All right, the reason I'm doing this show is because I like talking to people about diet, health, weight loss, any goals with your body, physical goals. It's something that keeps me accountable to myself and my own goals, and they're the conversations I've most enjoyed having these past 4 years. Before we dive into weight loss, exercise, nutrition, and mindset, the pillars of LifeLONG, I want to start with motivation and choices. These are the foundation for everything we'll talk about. To set the stage, here's a clip from film director Godfrey Reggio on the importance of routine.
The Dalai Lama was in Albuquerque in '91 giving a big lecture, and after the lecture he said, "I'll take a few questions." Young lady jumps up and said, "Your Holiness, what's the single most important thing I can do?" "Routine." Next question. That's who we are. We become what we do. Let me ask you this. Is it the content of your mind that determines your behavior? Or is it your behavior that determines the content of your mind? It's not a trick question, but it can sound that way. For 9 out of 8 of us, it's our behavior that determines the content of our mind. What we do every day without question is who we are.
We become what we do. Think about that. Lifelong choices, baby steps, patterns, attendance, routine. I'm not trying to make this sound easy. Routine is tricky. Much of my life, for example, is spent on the road, out of my normal day-to-day experience. You'll see that sometimes the show will be live from the Two-Way studio and other times from a hotel or a movie set. And because I don't wake up in my own house every day, my routine has multiple versions. I'm sharing this because even at the basic planning level, routine is tricky. I think that clip is really important. It touches on a lot of things. You know, he's emphasizing that motivation alone isn't always enough. All right, we're going to get into first things first.
Working out with us, my whole goal, I say to somebody, you should get out of bed the next day and be like, I think I worked out.
Yep.
I felt okay. I always tell everybody, everything's gauged on how you, if you get up in the morning and you're crippled.
Yeah, we did something wrong.
I suck. I'm like,
Yeah.
I did a really bad job. You should not be uncomfortable at all. We should be able to, this is whatever, you know, slow and steady wins the race, 1% better, however you want to look at it. And if we can just layer, like I always think, I'm a big attendance guy. If I can get you to show up 2 days a week for a year, you'll be remarkably different. And you might not have ever had, you know, any of the people, you know, balls to the wall or go to failure. Like we would have done none of that, zero. And yet you would look at somebody and think, wow, like if you came into our place, everybody looks younger than they do. Every single person. I am 100% certain, not just of the longevity benefit, but about the physical change that people undergo.
Longevity to me is a catch-all for living the best you can for as long as you can. And he's talking about doing something relatively easy 3 times a week. It's not that hard. It's not that much work. And there's really no reason not to do it. You know, when I started lifting weights, I thought you had to like fatigue your muscles extremely. I thought you had to like limp out of the gym every time you went in there. And it's just not the case. You can get huge gains by doing just, 30 minutes a few times a week.
Hello there.
Hi.
So my question was, I think there's a fine line between routine and monotony. So if you do the same thing all the time, you could either get into some bad habits or get bored eventually, and then it all goes out the door. So that said, I do a lot of the same things the first couple hours of each day, but I try to switch up the workouts. But I just didn't know if I guess with you, you're probably traveling, so each day is a little bit different what you're doing and where you're doing it.
Yeah, but I love what you're talking about, Julie, because I think you're absolutely right. I think of routine as like the fundamentals, like you're talking about switching up your workout, but the workout is part of the routine. And I totally agree with that. If you ate the same thing every day, that would become boring and you'd probably even become nutrient deficient in some ways. But like if there was some guidelines, not so that like today I'm going to eat whatever I want, but if I have like some idea of like an amount of protein I'm going to get, but I'm going to use a different protein source, or do you know what I mean? Like when I take my dog on a walk, I certainly don't walk the exact same path with her. She has a few spots she wants to sniff, but I change up the route quite often, and I think I do that for my own benefit as well as hers. But I completely agree with you. There is a difference between, I mean, routine can become monotonous, and I think it's valuable to shake it up in there. But if you find the foundation that's useful, like working out, eating in a certain way, and you can mix it up within those guidelines, I think that's super useful.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Interesting that we were talking about routine. I read an article in The Atlantic by Arthur Brooks. We'll put it up on the screen so you can see it, and maybe you can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I love this article, 6 Ways to Start Early and Lift Your Mood. Now, he's talking about doing things like getting up an hour and 36 minutes before, sunrise, because there's some metaphysical shift that happens, and how he doesn't start consuming coffee until basically, I think, over an hour into his day. And there's lots of people who have lots of ideas on what a good routine is. The thing I like in this article is that he just has a really consistent routine. So I think that the importance in finding that routine for you, and I like reading articles like this because I'm going to try getting up a few times an hour and 36 minutes before sunrise to see if that helps. I remember when there was the big craze of grounding and looking into sunlight first thing in the morning, letting the sunlight fall into the receptors of your eyes. I tried that. I went out every morning and stood on grass in my bare feet and found the sun and, allowed it to hit my eyes. I, after a few days of this, didn't notice a perceptible difference, and so stopped doing it. And like some of what Arthur's talking about here, I'm going to try it and see if it works. And if it does, I'm going to steal it. And if not, I won't continue to do it. But mostly what I like is the structure that he's built up. He's found 6 things that benefit him. And one of them is praying. I don't pray, but you could spend that time doing meditation. You could spend that time being present, working on mindset. There's lots of different alternatives, but the idea of having some set pattern to the morning, I think is really beneficial. It's amazing. I love that article, Trace.
We have a caller, Anna, who wants to talk about losing weight while drinking.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Ethan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Just wanted to know if you've had clients in the past or right now who drink or use substances and are still able to successfully lose weight. Like, I don't know if there's I don't want to say over drink, but just are able to add that into their diet and still find success.
I actually, strangely enough, earlier today sat down with a guy and had a conversation about this very thing. I think it can be very, very difficult to lose lose weight while drinking regularly. I don't know the exact science on it, but I have read that alcohol will slow the rate of weight loss. And that could be from a number of reasons. It could be because when we're inebriated and suddenly we become more apt to make gut or instant choices that could be detrimental to our diet. And there's also a physiological effect that slows down muscle building. I know a lot of bodybuilders will not drink alcohol for that reason. So I think it can be really hard to lose weight while drinking. I'm sure there are levels to this. I'm sure like a glass of wine a couple times a week is not going to have a profound effect, but I think you're probably talking about a bit more than that, right?
Yeah, I tend to drink after work pretty much every day. So I know I need to cut back on that. I just wanted to know if you knew anyone or you had clients that you worked with that were still able to find success at that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the guy I talked to today, that was one of the things I asked him was how often he was drinking. He said he had 2 to 3 drinks pretty much every day. And I was like, well, that could be what's stalling you. And how do you find that when you have alcohol, it's opens up your or lessens your inhibitions about the diet, or what is your diet like? I mean, that's really my first question.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. I mean, obviously I'm overweight and stuff. I would say after a couple glasses of prosecco or something, I'm more likely to decide to skip the chicken breast and go to McDonald's. So now that I'm kind of talking through it, it's like, yeah, obviously you're not going to find success when you make not only poor beverage choices, but poor diet choices as well. So,
Yeah, the other thing is alcohol is incredibly disruptive to sleep. And there's a lot of evidence to show that when we don't sleep enough, our body craves more energy from calories. So it can actually make us physiologically hungrier simply because we didn't sleep enough and we didn't recharge our batteries enough. And so the body is looking to get excess energy from food. So it's like this vicious cycle, right? We have some alcohol, and suddenly instead of the chicken breast, we're ordering nachos at the bar or going to McDonald's. And that's not going to be helpful for dieting. And then we don't get a great night's sleep, and we wake up and we're more hungry because of that. And I think it just contributes to the overall picture of real struggle on a diet. There was, when I was a kid, I tried to convince my mother at 10 years old, there was a diet in one of her magazines that called for basically you could have a whole bottle of Chablis every day. And I didn't even know what Chablis was, but I got that it was some kind of alcohol. And you got like 3 hard-boiled eggs and a couple Ritz crackers. And my parents had me on all these diets, and I was like, I'll do that diet, Mom. You know, ultimately, I don't think it's a healthy way to do it, but like, yeah, you can have alcohol, but you can't have alcohol and McDonald's. I don't think those are, you know what I mean? Like, if
yeah.
you can stay diligent on your diet while drinking, fine. The body will lose weight if it's in an energy deficit. But if it's going to get in the way, which I think it most likely will, it's going to be much harder.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I guess it really does come down to the whole calories in and calories out. And what are you going to drink your calories or eat them? So,
Right. Yeah, at the end of the
so
day, all diets work because you have a reduction of energy coming in, whether it's keto or paleo or the blood type diet or Atkins or carnivore or any of that. When you are losing body fat, it's because you're consuming less energy than your body needs. And so it's got to find that energy in the stored fat.
makes sense. Makes sense. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. That's a really interesting one. I can't believe that she asked that question because I really did have that conversation with somebody this morning. And basically, I think he was pretty much unwilling to get rid of drinking. And that's something that's really important for any of these endeavors, is like, what are you willing to do? Jonathan says, what tipping point or experience made you really want to lose weight? I had a very awkward conversation with a guy on a plane, and I had just gotten into a relationship with a girl who became my wife. And I thought, you know, I don't want to be open to these awkward conversations anymore. And I'd been sober for about a year at that point, and I realized, there's more to fix in me than just alcohol and drug use. And that was really the thing that made me start to confront my weight. And I basically never looked back. There were certainly periods in there where I gained weight after I'd lost weight, but I kept that desire alive the whole time, which I think is vital.
The chat is clamoring to hear what was in this awkward conversation.
The awkward conversation was, I was going to do a movie with a guy named Jim Caviezel. We were going to do a weird version of Robin Hood that was, I believe, set in the Revolutionary War, I think. And he was going to play Robin Hood. I was going to play Little John. And then the movie fell apart, and we never did it. And I had never met Jim Caviezel at that point. And then we ran into each other at the First Class Lounge in LAX in 2002. And then it turned out that we were on the same flight, and he didn't say anything about my weight in the lounge, but he was very intense, and I was a little bit uncomfortable, and I, wrapped up our hello and went and sat by myself until it was time to get on the plane. And then when we got on the plane, he and his wife were sitting like a couple rows ahead of me, and I unfortunately wound up with nobody in the seat next to me, which I knew this is going to be a problem because I bet Jim Caviezel's going to come and sit next to me. And of course he did. And we were on a flight from LAX to Frankfurt, Germany, which is like 11 or 12 hours. And he sat next to me and basically talked about how in his life he is at all times emulating Jesus Christ. And that's great. Good for you. But he could see very much that I was not. And he didn't come outright and say that that I was going to hell because of the state of me, but it was implied. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, I was just terrifically uncomfortable. Now, I'm super grateful that he did that, because for many years, I was actively not trying to be aware of the state of me, and he kind of like forced me to take a long, hard look at myself. And no part of it was so that I could emulate Jesus Christ, but it was really just that I didn't want anybody to ever feel that they could have that kind of conversation with me again. I just wanted to be, free from that kind of scrutiny. I think a lot about kindness, and I think about my children and how my instinct with my children is to give them everything they want. And I don't like saying no to them. And similarly with myself, for the longest time, I found it very difficult to say no to myself. Even if I wanted to say no to myself, I found it difficult. So with my kids, if my kid came to me and said she wanted to stick a butter knife into an electrical socket, I can't let her do that because it's going to hurt her. Or if she said she wanted to juggle sharp knives, I can't let her do that because that's super dangerous. So sometimes kindness is actually saying no. And That's become my mindset. What direction do I want to put myself in that is actually more an act of kindness to myself in the long term? That's how I'm moving away from self-sabotage, because I can feel down and know that, a Big Mac might make me feel better. But in the long term, that's not going to be beneficial to me. That's not going to be helpful. And so I have to say no to myself and go in a direction that's more self-supporting to my overall goals and what I'm trying to achieve. Yeah. Paul says, if you have to read a label and there are words on it you can't pronounce, your body probably can't pronounce them either. That means your body can't digest or assimilate it, and what you've bought is not food, and it's an experiment. I like my food to have one word in its ingredients. So like chicken is a great thing, and broccoli is a great thing. Rice, that's it. That's what you're getting. When you go to, fill your car up with gas, and everything in the store has a very long list of ingredients, probably not beneficial to health and physical goals.
That's about the end of the show, and let's talk a little bit about what people need to do going forward, how we'd like them to contribute and participate.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to revisit our first things first. And by that, I want you to send me your routine. I want to hear what you're doing every day. I want you to send, you can send videos, you can send audio files, you can upload, you send it through the two-way website. I want to start conversations. You can ask me anything via email and I'll answer it. You can go to my Instagram or my Substack. Whatever is easy for you and you feel comfortable. And I'd also like you to share this. Your ideas might help someone else in the community. And the goal here is to propel each other forward. So share the show on YouTube. Tell your friends to register via two-way. The clips from these pilot shoots will be on social media. Share them. All my links are on registration page at twoway.tv/Ethan Suplee. And thanks for joining us. This has been fun.